A pleasant good afternoon. It's Monday, the 7th day in July in the year 2025. My name is Christopher Jones, and I'm joined in studio with Sherrod Duncan. And this is a special edition of the APNU Elections Update. Sherrod Duncan, good afternoon. Welcome to the
A very good
program.
afternoon, Chris. It's a privilege to be here with you this afternoon. And under such very auspicious
Yes.
circumstances,
Yes.
this is now post campaign launch. And well, Chris, I'm still basking in the euphoria of a very, very successful campaign launch.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. And indeed, yesterday, the 6th of July, the official launching of the APNU coalition campaign, 7 political parties that are part of the coalition has now officially launched the campaign going forward.
Correct. So it was a fantastic day. Weather-wise, the people came out. The coalition base. This is the Apnu coalition because there are several coalitions now.
Exactly.
So we have to be very clear. This is the Apnu coalition. The folks came out yesterday for hours on end, and we had a very, very successful launch. We heard a very substantive presentation from both the prime ministerial candidate, from also our presidential candidate. This is Jurita Fernandes and Aubrey Compton Norton, respectively, and all of the other speakers yesterday really had very substantive presentations, and some of them we're going to reflect on today.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I know the viewers who had the opportunity yesterday to view if they were at home, and particularly those who were on the Square of the Revolution, they heard from some fresh faces, new candidate. Particularly one that jumped out is young Rovaldo Birbal.
Correct.
We saw the responses online, and of course, as we mentioned,
Correct.
Rovaldo is one in a slew of fresh new candidates that the APNU will essentially be putting those persons out there, the information and so forth.
Yeah, I know also that Eden Corbin.
Oh.
I don't want to say Eden was rolled out, but he was made known that young Eden Corbin, young student at law in my days, that's what we were called, students at law.
Yeah.
He's also announced as a candidate.
Correct.
And I tell you this, we have not had a chance to hear from Eden Corbin as well. But as our CARICOM neighbors, happy CARICOM Day, the Trinidadians say you're gonna like yourself when you hear Eden Corbin.
Yeah.
When you get a chance to hear him.
Exactly.
Just like Rovaldo, these are young people who know themselves.
Correct.
They're already persuaded in what they believe.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to be just as blown away by young Eden Corbin as we are.
Correct.
It's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I don't mind passing the torch
Exactly.
to these young people.
Exactly. It's like I said, people, the thousands of persons who were on the Square of the Revolution yesterday, essentially what the campaign deliberately did. It was not by accident. It was deliberate in terms of the messaging and information that he put out. And as agreed by the campaign well over a month and something ago, that only on launch day, we will reveal X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But there are lots more to come.
Yeah.
Lots of surprises.
Correct.
And the only way you follow that surprise is that you got
Correct.
to be part of the campaign as it continues to move throughout the country.
One of the pleasures of being on this side of presentations like this is knowing what comes next.
Exactly.
But I can't keep secrets very good. So keep that poker face, knowing what is to come.
Right.
Hearing people talk and say this and that, and the challenges and the naysayers and so on. I know lots of folks were pleasantly surprised by yesterday.
Of course.
But we got more surprises for
Absolutely.
the Guyanese people. But more than just the excitement that comes with campaign, there's a sound message that Guyanese are being drawn to, and that's a beautiful thing. But before we get there, some other things happened during the course of today.
Yes,
we want to alert you guys too, and then we're gonna circle back to the campaign launch yesterday and some other issues. So, for instance, I know that the folks there in Perth and Perth Maikoni, Region 5, they were hard on the ground this morning, and I want to give a shout out to them. All of the folks who were community to community, and this is happening across Georgetown. across Guyana, rather.
Yeah.
But I singled out Perth because I was with them too this morning. And the guys did a fantastic job. And a little later on in the evening, those of you who are watching us are going to get a chance to see some of that and listen to the conversation from the folks in Perth. But similar engagements are being had now. This is the retail politics.
Correct.
This is where the election is won. It's not an election day. It's the ground game.
That's right.
And who has the better ground game?
That's right. That's
They're
right.
going to be successful at the September 1, 2025 poll. And we know it's going to be the green team, the dream team, folks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And you rightfully mentioned it is a ground game. And has been the mantra of presidential candidate Aubrey Norton from inception, having won those Congress, becoming the lead of the PNC. And it has always been his mantra that the work, it has to be done on the ground. And that is why, as we mentioned just a few minutes ago, the campaign was very deliberate in terms of how it put out information, because the work was being done behind the scene, on the ground. Not the fancy look and decoration or whatnot. The people knocking on every single door across the country. You mentioned what happened this morning in Perth. And for those folks who were on the Square of the Revolution yesterday, who either came by boat, either came by road, or came by plane. For example, the folks in Region 1, Mabaruma, they left this morning via the first flight out to Mabaruma, got home, changed their attire, got in their jersey, and they were on the ground. So I don't know if they're off by now, but up to about an hour ago when I spoke with the folks in Port Kaituma, the ones who are working in Matthews Ridge and places like Arakaka, they are on the ground going house to house, door to door to spread the message. Similarly, same exercises being happened in Region 10, whether it's in Kokwani or Linden. So the folks have already been on the ground, have been on the ground for months, and they continue to do so as we go into ED.
Yeah. The folks also in Kokwani, big up yourselves. They reached out to us too, and they let us know that they got in at 2 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
They got in at 2 o'clock this morning. They were up this morning pressing the pavement, because that is how these campaigns are won. This is how this election is going to be won. You gotta be relentless. But we know a lot of people is not as relentless as we are. I mean, this is what we sleep, eat, dream. Every waking moment is spent thinking about these issues, and not only thinking about them, that bringing action to bear. So, for instance, long before lots of the folks who are watching us now got up this morning, there was a small team outside of the Umanayana. Chris, I saw you did some of the action there.
Yes. In fact, I went after you because I know you were there earlier with the team. And it's significant. And again, it is because the APIU coalition, with all of those parties a part of it, including the PNC, which is a mass-based political movement, no stranger to elections and so forth. And note that nominations day is on the 14th of July, which is next week, Monday.
Yes.
But one of the most important things that has to happen on nomination day, I mentioned this on a previous program, is the parties that got there first to make their submission of their list of candidates. And why is this significant and important? Is like if, for example, on the APNU's list, which will have a Sherrod Duncan as a candidate, the APNU will be the first party to go in, because the APNU is the first party to have arrived. And they have arrived today.
Yes.
This morning, one week out. They already line up. You know, like you would go to a stadium or whatever, you line up for us and whatever the case, or you go outside a bank and you line up to be the first one to go to the bank. So the APNU is already in line outside of the Umanayana, waiting to enter to submit their list of candidates nomination day, which is the 14th of July, 1 week away. And those persons are going to be sleeping, eating, rolling,
everything
right outside there.
And we're going to be joining them too periodically. Folks, if you're going to be in that area, please honk your horn, stop, say hello. They're going to be there round the clock for the next week.
Correct.
Now, folks, we ready.
Exactly. and that's
not just holding this.
Exactly.
Not just holding this.
Exactly. You know, what Aubrey doing, what PNC doing, what Apnu doing, you can find out.
Ready. And that's one of the important things in all of this, because what I love about Aubrey Compton Norton, is that he holds his cards close to his
Yes,
chest.
yes.
You know, he's not swayed by the frills and the drills. You know, and every now and again he peeping those cards, and that's why we saw, you know, quite recently. Just a little thing, a little play, and people start getting excited and saying, "Oh, master stroke,"
Yes,
and all
yes,
of that.
yes.
The bottom line is, in saying that this is about ground game,
Yeah.
really and truly, what this is about is strategy,
Exactly.
and you have to have strategy. And folks, we got a couple of things, as Chris says, a couple cards left unplayed.
Correct.
Y'all don't tempt us, eh?
And I think I said last night that the spirit
Don't.
that you would be shook it. You would be shook it.
You'll be shook at.
Mhm.
So for all the folks who are out there working hard, we see you guys.
Yeah.
Perth, the folks at Kokwani, the folks at, you call a couple places, Chris, all over this country. There are teams of green
Yeah.
working. We see you guys, and we give you guys a shout out. We salute your hard work, folks, and we're gonna be joining you all too.
Exactly. And for those who want to be part of the campaign, irrespective of the region that you reside, you note the various campaign offices across the country. Those of you in Georgetown or Region 4, there is Congress Pacifier. There are the folks that you know them. The doors are open. We are collecting the volunteers now. You just make contact, you share, submit your contact information and so forth to be part of it. Note you have also in operation the Youths for Aubrey Norton.
Yeah.
That group, so if you are a young person, you're desirous of being
Yeah.
part of the youth aspect of the campaign, that group is there. The Women for Aubrey Norton, they too are very active. I think in a couple of days, they're supposed to be hosting a major fundraising event and so forth. Those folks in the diaspora, I did
Yeah.
mention that several of them arrive in country as recent as, I think a few missed the rally, arriving this morning, but they started coming in last week. So they're here to spend the next 2 months thereabout with us to be part of the campaign. This is the time. Now is the time when people will start coming out to be part. If you are desirous of staying in the background, because we know the situation we're in a country in which it is run by a government that is essentially a dictatorship. We are in a dictatorship, and we are quite aware of those particular public servants and so forth who had expressed an interest and want to be part of the rallies and so forth. And we saw you last night. Thumbs up to you. You were way down in the back. I think those were the groups way down into like the Hatfield Street area and so forth. We saw you, and of course, we commend you for coming out. We know the constraint, we know the difficulty, we know the challenge, we know the fear. It's a bread and butter issue, and we are aware of the threats that many public servants receive in all of those various ministries. And what we ask those folks to do is you give us the name. We want to know the name of the supervisor, the manager, whoever is in charge of your department that issued those threats to you. We want to know the name. We want to make them famous.
Yeah.
We want to make them famous.
And I also know there was a team doing a fundraiser today, the green team in Bartica.
Yeah.
I know they were doing that, and we see you guys as well. But you mentioned about bread and butter issue, and before we wrap up this update, the campaign update for today, coming out of the various presentations last night, as we said, whether it was Ganesh Mahi Paul, then one of the next vice presidents, I think you're allowed 3 in any government,
Correct.
about 3.
Correct.
One of the next vice presidents, Drita Fernandes, our prime ministerial candidate, and our presidential candidate, Aubrey Norton. And the other person, Dr. David Hines, also had a very, very substantive presentation, all going to bread and butter issues, because if it's anything, people in this country are hurting economically.
Correct.
And that is why we've seen, in spite of the few roads that have been built and the bridges and so on, that there is such an exodus away from the PPP. And people understand how the incumbent, how they are vindictive. And so some are reluctant to come to the front.
Correct.
But a lot of business people want to see the backs of the PPP.
Correct.
Because they understand that in any iteration of the PPP government, it is always a small cabal alone who benefit. And that is why from the leader's presentation last evening, Mr. Norton's presentation, he was very, very strong on good governance and anti-corruption, denouncing that we have become one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and calling on all of us to join hands in rooting out corruption, saying that the oil revenues are a public asset to be shared equitably, and describing the PPP style of governance as a brazen kleptocracy, benefiting friends, of course, and insiders.
Yeah.
And what this campaign says is that friends had their time, favorites had their time, family had their time. This is the PPP.
Yeah.
It's time for you, Guyana.
Exactly.
It is time you get your share of this largesse, because up until now, you've been denied that. We've been promised a significant raise in wages and salary. We have not seen that. The pensioners are hurting. Our students are hurting. This society is hurting, and we can pick up any number of issues, Chris.
Exactly. No, but piggybacking on what you mentioned in terms of the presidential candidates presentation, one key phrase that stood out to me, and I think it should also be part or one of the mantras of this campaign. Presidential candidate Aubrey Norton said last night to the Guyanese people, and I quote, "Have no fear, you will have your share."
Yes.
That stood out to me, because that is the issue. When you speak to people about the bread and butter issue, everybody will say that, listen, we are aware that the oil resources, only a few people getting it. And we welcome, and it is important, infrastructure development. It is needed in any country that is developing. We welcome that. And that will continue under our administration. But then in terms of developing the human capital, you have public servants to this day, they haven't gotten their share. The police officers, they haven't gotten their share. The teachers, the nurses, the so forth, they haven't gotten their share. The average young person still can't afford to pay huge sums of money for a plot of land to do a construction. They haven't gotten their share. People who got land acquired for a number of years can't even begin to construct. You haven't had your share. Yeah. And that is what the presidential candidate of the APNU, Aubrey Norton, is saying to you, that you should have no fear. Under an APNU, Aubrey Norton-led administration, Guyanese people you will get your share.
Yeah.
And that is significant.
Yeah, it's time for you.
Exactly.
It is time to put you first. We have seen it. Yeah. We see how people live lavishly than how they started when they entered government. Yeah. And the big houses that were built, ministers own apartment buildings. They live a lifestyle that the rest of you could only dream of. I've seen a minister in Region 6 build a lavish home. They drive the best. They're driving the Hummers and the this and the that. And I saw another minister in Region 3. He built a sprawling estate. I mean, this is like unfathomable. But it's time for the Guyanese people. You've been given the very short end of the stick. Yeah. And one of the other things I heard Mr. Norton say last night, presidential candidate for the Apnu coalition, is justice for our children and respect for the rule of law, saying that there will be an international investigation into the death of Adriana Young within 100 days of assuming office. Now, that brought back so much trauma for me personally. We know Adriana Young was not in that pool, and I am already persuaded in what I believe, but there ought to be a thorough investigation.
Correct.
And that is our pledge to the Guyanese people, that within 100 days of taking office, there will be such an international investigation. He is also, in that presentation last evening, accused the PPP of repeatedly covering up high-profile crimes, and we can go through so many of them. We know some of them by heart. The Henry Boys is one of the most telling. Both mothers have now passed away, and stones still have not been turned. Correct. Even though there were pledges, we'd leave no stone unturned. And I know what is even more heartbreaking for me personally, and I'm certain for you, Chris, as a legislator, is the fact that we had a motion in the National Assembly just to talk about this issue in the National Assembly that was denied for 5 years. Because I don't know how many Guyanese remember, but the Henry Boys happened in late September of 2020.
Correct.
That motion in the National Assembly was blocked for 5 years.
Yes.
The life of the National Assembly has now been ended, which means that motion is dead.
Correct. Correct.
For 5 years. For 5 years. That's very telling.
Yeah.
So justice for our children. There's been such an uptick in missing children in this country. Every day,
Yeah.
some child
Yeah.
goes missing.
Yeah.
You know, our children are not getting the best. There are a few who excel and do tremendously well. You know, we're thankful for them. They are kids. But we want all Guyanese children to be put first. And we also heard the leader of the opposition, the presidential candidate for the Apnu coalition, criticize the commissioner of police,
Yes.
who seem not to be in control of the Ghana police force by any measure. Folks, we need to see the back of this commissioner of police. And it's only going to be done under an Apnu AFC government. He's been too complicit with some of these officers. We understand that you have some very, very professional people in the Ghana police force dedicated to the profession of upholding, you know, all of the tenets that they swear by as servicemen and women.
Yeah.
But this commissioner, my lord,
Yeah.
It leaves much to be desired, Chris.
You know, a lot too, as we mentioned about it, but and the presidential candidate mentioned this last night, and I think Jarita, subject to correction as well, the prime ministerial candidate made mention, and that is the weaponizing of the Ghana police force. And not only the weaponizing of the Ghana police force, there's also the Ghana Revenue Authority, but we'll stick with the Ghana police force for now. And as the presidential candidate mentioned last night, those are among the issues that we have. Because, for example, when you had the night after the autopsy, the Ghana police force, within a mere 12 hours, were able to issue wanted bulletins for a slew of persons, and attribute them or their action to terrorism. And when there is a major crime, like when you had the shooting of paper shards outside of the main street there, the CCTV cameras suddenly are not working. Similarly, when you had, just after the PPP came into office, and you had that massive shipment of cocaine that left Guyana, that actually had to been taken to the wharf via some
Belgium. There's the Belgium,
Exactly.
one of the biggest cocaine busts we've had.
The cameras suddenly not working. And that is the situation we got. If the PPP decide that Sharon Duncan is making too much of political headway in this campaign, the police could turn up by Sharon Duncan house, because somebody in the PPP can simply pick up the phone and call one of them and say, go.
They feel threatened.
Exactly. That is the situation we got in the country. And you juxtapose what is currently obtained to when the APNU was in government, and you have every single Guyanese, irrespective of the political persuasion, will say to you that indeed and true, when the APNU was in office, I felt safe. You could have called the police if there's a crime. Within a matter of days, the police were able to solve those crimes and so forth. They were allowed to be a professional Guyana police force bunch. But since the PPP came back to office, they took over the police force, they weaponize it, and they use it to go after their political opponents or any people who dare to speak ill about the PPP.
Yeah. You know, Chris, you mentioned the paper shorts issue. Now, that happened just a short distance from the official residence of the president, the official resident of the president, residence rather, of the president of this country. This is right on Main Street. It's one corner away. And again, you heard pledges that we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're still waiting.
Correct.
But we want to put the security of each citizen of this country first. And you know, if we're being honest with ourselves, under the last administration, we were working on that.
Exactly.
Right. As Chris articulated, all of those other issues, crimes were being solved. People felt more secure.
Correct.
You know, I always remember one night leaving work and heading up South Road, and there was a couple, a Chinese couple walking hand in hand. It was around 8 o'clock down South Road. You know, you can't do that now.
Exactly.
8 o'clock at night, you alone on South Road or any other road in this country.
Exactly.
You put yourself in some trouble. But we want to go back. We want to have the freedom. You should have the freedom of your city, of your neighborhood, of your communities. You don't have that now.
Correct.
Right? And so these are just some of the issues that we thought we'd share with you, just in case you missed the presentation presidential candidate also had a tremendously substantive presentation. Now,
Yeah.
this is near and dear to my heart because
Yes.
Dorita is a parliamentary colleague of ours. She's of our generation,
Correct.
maybe closer to you than to me. But Dorita is what one poet says is the hope and dream, of all of us.
Yeah.
You can say we don't like young people.
Correct.
Dorita fits the bill on so many levels. A mother, right? A woman, a mother. She is indigenous. She is bright. She's articulate. I mean, we were talking about Eden Corbin and Rivaldo, and young people leading this thing from the front.
Yeah.
So here is Aubrey Compton Norton believing in young people, not just in talk, but in his running mate, his partner.
Correct.
And listening to Dorita last evening, I had a little ontological shift, I think is the phrase. Here is a friend and you're celebrating her having come to this point in her political career.
Yes.
And just in awe, listening to her articulate so many issues of integrity and leadership, and a place where she excelled, being an economist by training at university level, at the master, at the undergraduate level, at the master's level, understanding these issues. And she served for 5 years as a point person in the National Assembly, talking about the cost of living, as we've been articulating here this afternoon, and about how people are hurting in this country, economic mismanagement in this country. Look at the sectors. Sugar, you can see where that's going. Even rice that has a surplus, we can't even benefit from that because there is nothing to capture that. Rice going to waste, literally being dumped by the tons. So even what's supposed to be a blessing end up being a setback, a challenge for us in this country. What our workers earn, what our public servants earn in this country. Youth and education. Now, she would understand this, having walked this way before, and what it means to our young people. Not just to have tokenism, but understanding this, something now. Where free education started in this country. What happened in 92?
Exactly.
What happened in 2013 when those tuition fees that were instituted under the PPP were hiked under the PPP in 2013?
Yes.
Started out as free education up until 1992, and it's always been the dream of the Apnu coalition to return it to free education. And that has always been on the cards. Now we have the money to do it. It has been done. We will maintain it. But talking there last evening about guaranteeing not just free education. You can't walk to UG.
Correct.
You got to eat while you're there. As a young person, the challenge, I understand that, of working and studying. I always say hats off to the people who can do it. That is another level of discipline that is needed, working and studying. And we're saying we want to challenge our young people to be the best that they can be. We want to put our young people first. And here is the prime ministerial candidate last evening rolling out one of these policies, that says that we will give every student a monthly stipend of $50,000. Go and focus on your studies.
Exactly.
Go and focus on your studies. Among some other things that we can be doing for our students, for instance, like trying to offset some of their housing expenses, rental expenses, and so on. You gotta go. We want our kids to be better than us. That's every parent's dream, and we want to give them that extra leg up. We want to give them that running start by putting them first, as they should be put first. Look, Chris, youth policy council, youth council was launched under great fanfare 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
With the allocation of 150. Go ahead, sorry.
Every budget cycle we ask. Now, the person who speaks on this issue is Gail Teixeira. Big youth. She speaks to this youth council. Much fanfare. What has ever happened to the youth council? You see, cutting ribbons and sustaining programs are different things. You see, it's like movement and progress. There's a big difference. People could be moving, lots of people are moving, but showing the progress is different. Saying you can make sugar great again and actually making sugar great again is different. Now them boys say they're getting sugar from cassava, they're getting sugar from hemp, They're getting sugar from soy because all these areas now, the same guy sugar going into
Yeah.
all these areas,
Yeah.
right? So certainly they must be getting cassava sugar, hemp sugar, and so on. Who knows? But clearly sugar has not been made great again.
And it's not sweet. And
Yeah.
it's not sweet.
Bitter sugar.
Mhm.
Bitter sugar. So it was very rewarding hearing the Prime Ministerial candidate, Judy Finance, articulate this issue. The promise to invest significantly in the University of Guyana, strengthening lecturers' pay, strengthening infrastructure, strengthening our international reputation. Because, folks, as someone who sits on the UG Council, they will tell you free tuition is one thing.
Yeah.
But if we want to attract the best
Correct.
lecturers, internationally trained, if we want to attract doctors, that is part of your ratings of a university. How many doctors do you have in the different programs and so on? We got to be able to pay people well. It's only so far what they say, it's service to country is going to take you. People still got to live. Lecturers got families too.
Correct.
We're putting lecturers first. We're putting students first. We're putting the University of Guyana first. And it's not only limited to the University of Guyana, but every other tertiary institution in this country as well. These were just some of the issues that were featured in Prime Ministerial candidate Rita Finance presentation last week.
And she also touched on senior citizens and children,
Correct.
as well, to ensure that the senior citizen, in terms of the pension, these are some of the commitment that the PPP made in the 2020 elections. Or once we go in, they spoke about 50% salary increases to public servants, for example, and so forth. And it is the commitment of the APNU that the senior citizens will receive a substantial amount of pension per month. There is also the assistance to to parents with young children of $120,000 per year. That is going to be provided to them. Now, having been in office for 5 years, access to the oil resources, and the PPP is yet to make any of these commitments that they made a reality. And it is just we would call a cloak and dagger.
Yeah.
It is nothing else behind it. It is just a fanfare. You spoke about the ribbon and cutting event. Someone said to me last night on the square that the biggest thing for the PPP, the biggest investment is in the ribbons, right? It is in the ribbon, because once the cutting is done and all the fanfare is over, there's nothing else behind that comes with it. So senior citizens, children, you mentioned the education sector and so forth. These are all of the programs in which the APNU in government will be ensuring that the oil resources are spent in that direction.
Picking up on the same theme from presidential candidate Aubrey Norton, she spoke about transparency, reform, anti-corruption. I remember when a former ambassador, Siran Lynch, spoke about corruption. It was Anti-Corruption Day, I think 3-4 years ago. The only thing she could have pointed to were corruption measures under the last government that were implemented under the last administration. And she was begging pretty much the incumbent to pursue anti-corruption measures. They have done a couple events to say we've talked about this thing, share out flyers and so on, but no real emphasis has been put on anti-corruption. And we know why, because they would be caught in their own nets.
But significantly, as it relates to the same anti-corruption, which is a program and an activity by the Minister of Governance, Gail Teixeira, on the day of National Anti-Corruption Day. And in the Parliament of Guyana, when attempting to make reference to the program that was had by a minister, we were restricted to do so. So even mentioning the word in the Parliament, corruption, anti-corruption, or anything related with it, you cannot do.
Yeah. So the minister also, the prime ministerial candidate also spoke to culture, sports, and identity.
Yeah.
And we learned recently that part of this shake-up, because we're told that Charles Ramson has performed so poorly. We're being told that he has been now pulled from cultural events, from dealing with this culture aspect of his very ministry, because the showing has been so poor. Now, this is not only limited to Mr. Ramson, but across the board. But this team, the Apnu Coalition, offers a people-centered governance to put you first. As we've said, everybody, the cabal, the small cabal, they've had their time. The friends, the family, the favorites, and even the flatterers, They've had a piece of the pie in mind. They took a lot.
Yeah.
The promises have fallen short.
Yeah.
Guyanese, you should have been getting your electricity. Your light bill should have been half by now.
Correct.
The construction of the gas issue project ain't even quarter way gone.
Mhm.
It has been stalled for the last 2 years.
And
I mean, the project has collapsed so bad.
yeah.
We are now paying the contractor
Correct.
for not proceeding
proceeding with the project.
with the project,
Mhm.
and we're paying in heftily.
Yeah.
We're paying the contractor as much as we're paying the lobbyists,
Mhm.
in Washington
Mhm.
to spread lies about the Apnu coalition.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that?
The same lobbyist group in which the attorney general denied the existence, as well as the president denied the existence,
Yes.
and then the vice president come out and confirm that we pay in this group.
Yes. Imagine if those monies were to come back into the pockets of our young people.
Exactly.
50,000 US a month.
Exactly.
So between two organizations that might be paying this company because they're now in breach of contract.
Yeah.
And as part of the clause for this company that is a contractor for the oil and gas project, for every day that the company is not proceeding with its work, we have to pay the company.
You.
So then they're
you paying.
paid for doing nothing.
Exactly.
And then we're paying lobbyists.
Mhm.
Guyanese,
This is the bright
it's
people.
time you all are paid. It is time you all are paid.
Yeah.
Do you know what is the salary for the CEO of Gaisuko that hasn't produced an ounce? I heard the leader say last evening, Mr. Norton, haven't produced an ounce of sugar profitability over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
He gets about 30,000 US a month.
Mhm.
How much do you get?
Correct.
It's time for you.
Correct.
And this team, the green team,
Yeah.
we want to put you first.
Yeah.
Everybody had the time,
Yeah.
the chance.
Mhm.
It is your time now. It is time for your family.
Correct.
We're gonna put your family first.
Yeah.
We're gonna put your kids first.
Correct.
We're gonna put you first.
Correct. Sharon, when you mention when you remind us about people and the salary who getting paid to do absolutely nothing. We just touching the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
The amount of friends, family, and favorite and flatterers of the People's Progressive Party Civic. For example, in several of those ministries, you have ministers who have advisors who are all PPP party members receiving nothing less than $500,000 and $600,000 per month to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
These advisors don't advise on anything. They just have the position, and at the end of the month,
Correct.
your taxpayers' dollars go into their bank account.
Correct.
That's what they're doing.
Also, we've seen, as I said when we started, this trend of ministers owning apartment building. That's the latest
It's
fad.
spread. And
Once
you
you're
only spoke about that.
and this is apartment buildings that went into government owning.
Yeah, exactly.
This is since they've become ministers.
Exactly.
Ministers own businesses that supply
Mhm.
the government
Yes.
with
Yes.
services,
Yes.
with products and
Yes.
services.
Minister's son
Yeah,
and the sweet woman got
Yeah.
contract from the said government ministry that the minister's in. You have
Correct.
your tip of the iceberg.
correct. Folks,
Yeah.
they've had a fair chance. You give them a fair chance. 5 years. 5 years is a long time. Has your life improved in 5 years? Without oil money, salaries were raised every year under the last administration.
77%.
It's just one
in the
issue.
period.
Cumulatively, 77%
Correct.
over 5 years. Your life's better now, folks. The inflation rate was 0.9 when the last government left office. The inflation now must be hitting 10-15%. That's why you're paying more in the marketplace.
Correct.
And that is why even though you get a couple cash grants very irregularly, you have to join lines, climb on people's head,
For the-
box people shove you,
Yeah.
coffee your belly, all that.
Yeah.
For a little cash grant that you got to go to the doctor now,
Correct.
get your
No,
eye
correct.
fixed,
Mhm.
your broken arm and all of that. Folks, that thing has to be regularized.
Yeah.
And that is what we're going to do to put you
Exactly.
first.
Exactly.
Every month, every 3 months, whatever the consistency rate, you should see that reflected in your bank account. Not have to go and stand up in no line for no cash grant. You got to stand up in a line for your pension.
Yeah.
Stand up in a line for cash grant.
Yeah.
Stand up in a line for sugar. You remember just recently,
Correct.
sugar was being rationed. You couldn't go in the shop and take a 2-pound pack of sugar.
Exactly.
What have we come to, folks? It is your time. We're putting you first. Everybody had a time, right? It's time you all get 1 and 2, nice vehicles too,
Exactly.
and so on. It's not just for friends,
Exactly.
family, and favorite. Guyana, we got enough.
Yeah, like the
We
minister.
got enough coming into this country. via oil.
Correct.
And if we add gas to it,
Oh,
the mineral wealth, gold, diamond, bauxite, timber, we got enough. We ain't gone into livestock, fisheries and livestock. And folks, we got it in this country.
Diamond,
We are a
gold,
blessed
timber.
country, but we got poor leadership
Exactly.
managing this country. It is time you guys are first.
Exactly. Listen, the time is now. It is. Could you imagine, in a country like ours, we have a population that is less than 1 million people. We have the fastest growing economy in the world.
Mhm.
A population less than 1 million people, and to this day, public servants receive starvation wages and salaries. The pensioners barely getting a pittance at the end of the month. That
Yeah.
by the time they collect the pension,
Doctors are crying out
oh my God,
about the overtime
Oh
because
my God.
we have some new buildings. Can we call them
Yeah,
hospitals?
yeah.
We have some new buildings. Now these doctors are stretched,
Mm.
right? But the overtime doesn't compensate. But you're on call more, but it's not reflected in your pockets. What kind of country is that?
You mentioned the new buildings, not hospital. No, let me listen. You know, when you really study the PPP, you just want to know how they managed to stay in office for such a long time. Honestly, that regional hospital at Diamond, the area in which it is constructed, virgin land, nothing else around it. So one would say, when I started, construction started, I saw next door another empty land. I said, well, hereby, finally, PPP making sense here. Because when they build this hospital, right next door there is a big parking lot they put in down. That was my thought. Lo and behold, I coming down from the airport, go around, it's going around the back there, one long traffic congestion. And I tried to figure out what is happening there. When I reach in front of the hospital, then to realize that empty space next to that hospital is not a parking lot. And everybody who's going to the hospital struggling to find parking at some part of the road, the shoulder of the road. Then there's a Chinese supermarket. It's not a Chinese billet. It's somebody, friends of the PVP, who get the land across the road because it's strategically located. And they construct this big supermarket. And then you got people who go into the supermarket. It is the weirdest thing. And it tells you how incompetent this government is, that you will construct a regional hospital on a main thoroughfare and not utilize the virgin land that was around there for parking. And similarly, you have, like how the APNU plan is to decentralize essential government facilities and take them just out of the city. So you ease the congestion. They built that regional hospital without considering parking for vehicle on there.
Yeah.
Incompetence.
So, folks, as we wrap up, the other building in Enmore that they cut the ribbon to, I was quite surprised to see in some of the photographs. The road to get to the building is so potholed, so muddy. You got to walk through so much mud to get, but ribbons got to cut.
Yes.
Ribbons got to cut.
Correct. We did it.
Roads that were built last month falling apart.
Of course.
I can wait to see other people cross this new bridge, and then I can make up my mind.
You remember they got to make up the numbers, They got to make up the numbers.
But as we wrap up, folks, I just want to walk through some of the issues that were covered in these yesterday, and these policies that were rolled out. Good governance, housing support, the justice system, public utilities, cash transfer, agriculture, health and pay, youth and education, culture, youth and sports. Homelessness was also part of the discussion. National unity was also part of the discussion last evening as well. The cost of living, or public servants, how better off are they? We did talk about youth education, our seniors, our kids, employment largely, the inclusion of our indigenous brothers and sisters, anti-corruption and transparency, culture and identity, and a governance philosophy that really centers around you. And I'm putting you first. Yeah. We're going to put you first. Yeah, I think that's our update for today.
All right, viewers. So thank you very much for being part of the APNU update. And of course, in the coming days, you will see a rollout of new faces that will be part of these update programs as well. And we'll keep you informed. Again, next Monday, the 14th of July, will be nominations day. And this is going to be had at the Umanayana, right there in Kingston, across the way from the Pegasus Hotel. The APNU contingent is going to be gathering at the corners of Lamaha and Main Street We ask persons to be out there by 8 o'clock in the morning. Get your t-shirts ready. And of course, the procession will leave and head to the Umaniana shortly thereafter. So
Yeah.
8 o'clock on Monday the 14th, gather at the corners of Lamaha and Main Street
Correct.
as we take our list of candidates in.
Correct. Good being here with you folks. We're gonna have another update tomorrow, I think, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah. So see you guys tomorrow.